Guys, welcome to a maniacal approach to FRC with me, Joe Blay from Team 694. Thank you for joining me, taking some time out of your Saturday, or if you're watching later, thank you for taking the time to watch this. This is a presentation that I've done in the past at the in-person Stuy Splash lecture series that we do at our school in New York City. And I'm excited to kind of be able to reach more people and do it over YouTube and Twitch so that there are lots of other teams who can benefit from this. So first, a little bit about me. Who am I? My name is Joe Blay, and I'm an FRC-aholic maniac. If you've been in FIRST for a while, you've probably come across some of these people. We are crazy about FRC. We're obsessed about it. Some of us are students, some of us are mentors, some of us are volunteers, but we all can't get enough of FRC. When the pandemic hit, the hardest part for us was that we couldn't go to FIRST competitions. We live, breathe, sleep this stuff. It's all we think about. When you are an FRC-aholic, an FRC maniac, you're constantly thinking about how you can be a little bit better, how you can contribute more to your team, to your program, especially at the competitions. So my plan here in this presentation is to go through some of those things that I do, that I've learned over my time in FRC, and kind of pass that knowledge on to you, and you can use that and do with it what you will. So I'm a robotics teacher at Stuyvesant High School. This is actually my 15th year in FRC. All have been with 694. 4 of those were as a student, and the other 11 have been as a mentor. And then in the last 3 years, I've taken over as the teacher at Stuyvesant. I volunteer as well, usually as a referee. I really enjoy refereeing. I find that it gives me a better understanding for the rules, which is beneficial. It's also just like really fun because you get to see the teams up close. You get to meet a lot of the teams. I like anything that's field side, and refereeing is like you feel like you're really in the game. And as someone who has definitely been on the side of, I can't believe that ref made that call, I feel like I can volunteer and make that better call. So I encourage all FRC maniacs to volunteer in some capacity. I also game announce from time to time and do some field reset stuff as well. I was the main robot operator in 2009, the driver, and back when I was a student, I co-founded 694 strategy team. I've been the lead strategy mentor since 2010. I've been the drive coach since 2011, and I've been the lead mentor since 2013. In my time as a mentor of 694, we've had 15 blue banners. We were the 2016 Curie Division champs as captains of the number 8 alliance, only second alliance ever to do that, to make Einstein out of the 8th seed. And we've had 6 regional wins during that time frame as well. And one of the things that I'm actually really proud of during that time, and I didn't include it in here, but we've never missed eliminations at the regional level, which is, I think a lot of top teams, that usually doesn't happen to them. But we've had some pretty rough robots that can barely move, and we still somehow make elims. And I think a lot of the stuff that I'll go through here, if you are a team where you're obsessed with FRC, but your team struggles, you don't have great resources, or sometimes you go the wrong way with your robot. I think that if you have the right approach at a competition, even with a robot that just drives, you can make eliminations. If you approach the matches the right way, you can get yourself into the top 8. You can get yourself to be pickable by just playing smart and doing smart things. Before I jump in too deep into this presentation, the first step, if you want to be an FRC maniac like me here and all these other crazy people, where should you start? I highly recommend watching Karthik Kanagasabapathy's presentation titled Effective First Strategies. I'm going to put the link to that in the description once this is posted and finished. It is a really great presentation. I think every FRC maniac has seen that presentation at some point. It's super inspirational. He's a really inspirational mentor for 1114 and in the FIRST community in general. And he just talks about like his approach and 1114's approach to game design, and with a strategical approach and competition strategy. I think that pretty much every single strategy-based presentation that we see in FRC is somehow based off of his presentation in some way. So I highly recommend everyone watches it. I saw it back in 2014 in person. We didn't qualify for champs, so I just went out to champs and just met teams and went to those presentations, and I saw his in person, and it really changed the way I look at everything. So I couldn't recommend this presentation enough. Mike Corsetto also has another good one. You can go on GameSense. I'll post all of these afterwards. Some other things you should do if you want to be an FRC maniac, you need to be on Chief Delphi for starters, because that is the forum for FRC, and just people are posting lots of interesting things there constantly. You also should be on the Blue Lines watching lots of match film. There's so much great documented film from not just the years you're participating in, but previous years, seeing what other teams have done. Knowing designs from the past can be really helpful when you're coming up with designs and strategies for the future. A lot of the strategies we pull into matches, especially later in the season, we are pulling from regionals where teams have ran a strategy and we like the certain part of it. And then there are FRC Discords and FRC Reddit. I look at FRC Reddit from time to time, and I know that for the younger folk, FRC Discord is pretty popular, but I think I'm a little too old for that at this point in my life, unfortunately. But the point is just immerse yourself. You want to be immersed in FRC, immerse yourself. Go spend time on these sites, watch these videos, just continue to improve and learn more. Okay, so first, just kind of guiding principle for how to be like a little bit of a maniac at competitions. Believe in yourself and believe in your team. There's this famous Confucius quote, the person who says they can and the person who says they can't or cannot are both usually correct. And I first heard that from Will Smith, and other people have said it, but it's first attributed to Confucius. I think this is really true. If you go into a competition and you don't believe that your team can be successful, or you don't believe that your robot's going to do well, or that you're personally going to be able to contribute, you're probably going to be right. It's going to be really hard to overcome that attitude when it's internal. So just having the attitude of believing in yourself and your team, being a little bit irrational about your possibilities. Be a little irrational about how good you can be, how good your team can be. Maybe your robot's not great, and being honest about that is good. Don't get me wrong, it's good to be honest, especially with other teams, about how good your robot is. But maybe you can put yourself in a position where you can be successful. Just because you don't have the best robot doesn't mean you can't win. There are plenty of regionals that are won and district events and even champs that are won by not the best team, or rather not the best robot at the event. That happens all the time. So put yourself in the best position to be successful, and you can do great things. But if you have that attitude going in of, well, I don't know, I don't think we can pull this out, you're not going to pull it out. It's already over before it started. I always like to think of our 2013 New York City Regional. We barely moved the entire event. There was a match where we were playing against a team who could only score in the 1-point goal, and all we did was park in front of that 1-point goal because it wasn't a protected zone, and then they couldn't score, and we hung and we won that match. And I think that we just believe, like, hey, it doesn't matter that a robot can't shoot frisbees right now, because that was the game that year. You had to shoot these frisbees, and our shooter was just broken the entire time. All we could do was drive and hang. It didn't matter. We were like, okay, how can we win this? How can we still win this? And we ended up winning matches by playing smart. We ended up being the 6th Alliance captain. No one picked us. We got our shooter working. We picked 2 great teams, and we ended up winning that event because we just, at no point do we give up. And even though we knew we didn't have the best robot at that event, we definitely didn't. We still managed to win. So I think this, really believing in yourself is the starting point for being a maniac in FRC. You got to be a little irrational about your capabilities, about your team's capabilities. So the first maniac move, and I'm going to go through a bunch of these. This is something that we do on 694. We, every kickoff, play the game on kickoff. Now, we don't have a field yet. Usually, maybe we build one field element, maybe not. But we do this every year. And what we do is we find an empty space. The best we can do is the 3rd floor atrium. We are in the middle of Manhattan, so space is at a premium. But I think that most schools in FRC, you could just kind of go outside and tape out a field, or you have a big basketball court or something you can use, but just find something that you can use. We tape out the field and we simulate the game. Couple of benefits to this. Walking the field gives you a much better picture of how the game flow will work. And what is and isn't possible. You might think instinctually that something is a lot closer or further away than it is. And then you kind of stand there and you're like, wait, it's just over there. The step is just this tall, or the scale is this far away, or the high goal is this far. Maybe I could shoot full court. So just getting a feel for it is really important on that first day. So what we generally do is we'll actually play the game with people. We use chairs and dollies to simulate robot speed. So people will be on dollies, on chairs, moving around. And we use random objects to simulate game pieces. This is a clip from 2018. I'll play it right now as I talk. Here, I'll skip a little bit to where it actually starts.
Why is it not working?
Can you point? To get it. Oh, yeah, I'm doing good. All right, whenever. And we're checking.
Ready. Drivers not really behind the lines. 3, 2, 1, go.
Good work.
So you kind of see it's a little silly. It's fun. It's engaging. So kids obviously want to do it. Mentors want to do it. I always like to participate in it. And it really does give you a feel for how fast things can be done. If you're a human in a dolly, I feel like goes about the speed that a good robot can. I think robots can actually go a little bit faster. But this gives you a feel for like what strategies will be in play. Like here, you actually see me on the day of kickoff just doing this portal. This is a throwback to 2018, doing this portal, going behind the back and placing it in the opposing switch. And this is an interesting strategy that we noticed right away. And we're like, oh, I think some teams are going to do that. Being able to pick up and score on opposite ends might be important in this game. We ended up not doing that. We did spend a lot of time talking about it because of seeing stuff like this. We do is we play these games. We play a few of them. We discuss what everyone notices and what possible strategies we might see. And this is, kind of silly and crazy, and not a lot of teams do this. But it is incredibly helpful, and you don't need that much to do it. You need a few people measuring and taping out. You need, to take some time, get some space. But I think every team should be able to do something like this, and it is very, very helpful. Next, Maniac move number 2. Read the game manual. Read it over and over and over and over again. Make it your favorite book. Be crazy about it. I generally read the game manual about 3 times before we ever get to a competition. I read it pretty closely. It gives you a much better understanding for the game, and it lets you know about certain situations that you might not realize about that aren't talked about very often. 2 examples of this. So I also monitor the Q&A because there are a lot of really useful things on there. A lot of good teams are asking questions that'll let you know how they're thinking about the game. So I always I'll go on the Q&A and I'll look up, okay, what's 254 asking? What's 469 asking? What's 67 asking? What are, 1678, 987? What are all the best teams, 118? What are all the best teams in the world asking? What are they curious, if it's okay? So 2 examples of this. So first one, in 2019, there was this really silly Q&A question. I mean, it wasn't a silly question. It was a silly response, I think, from the Q&A. So basically in the rules, it sounded like if you knocked off a game piece off the cargo ship, it would give the other alliance a free ranking point for the rocket, even though it was a game piece on the cargo ship. And there was a Q&A, clarifying this, and the refs double down, and the people who answer the Q&A double down and say, yep, that's going to be a free ranking point. So I knew that. Our team knew that. And, we were at an off-season event in 2019. And, this happened. Let me skip ahead a little bit. Notice there's a flag on the field that didn't lead to a replay. This happens. This team over here knocks off a hatch panel on our side, and a ball rolls out. Now, we know, hey, that's not just, we're going to get two fouls because there are 2 game pieces, which is 6 points. We also should get a free ranking point. So after the match was over, our student went over, we argued it, the refs agreed, and we got a free ranking point out of it. So that was just like a little area of the rules that we discovered from monitoring the Q&A closely, from looking at the rule book closely. So I recommend you do that. Another example is this in 2020. I think a lot of teams didn't realize this based on just what I was seeing from them in matches. Your balls for auto count as scored 5 seconds into teleop. So if you were to score a ball at the very start of teleop and it cleared in the first 5 seconds, that would count as an auto ball still. And it would count towards, if you had cleared level 1, it would count towards level 2, towards, getting the 3 levels to get the bonuses from the control panel, all that stuff. So what we discovered at Palmetto, where we competed this year, is when we went into a limbs, we had 3 robots scoring, and one of the robots was actually kind of getting in the way of our camera, and we had to slow down our auto so that we searched for the vision target a little bit longer. And the result of this was our last few shots, like we would pick up 2 balls, shoot 3, pick up another ball, shoot the last 3, so we'd end up scoring 6. And as soon as we hit a limb, stuff started going wrong, and we had to include this delay. And what ended up happening is we weren't scoring the last 3 in auto. And but we were in position. So as soon as teleop started, our operator would shoot the 3 balls. And we didn't panic about this. We didn't change anything because we knew, okay, we can shoot those 3 balls out super fast. They're clearing within those first 5 seconds. This isn't ideal. We'll have to fix it going forward, but we can leave this for limbs and we'll still get the points. We knew that. Another team, they might have panicked and not realized that. Another team might have moved a bit at the start of teleop instead of firing all those balls because they didn't know that. So just like really understanding the rules at a high level, beyond kind of just that baseline level for building a robot, but really being a rules expert can really pay dividends for a team. And the interesting thing is, because we were shooting those 3 balls in teleop, they counted towards level 2 because our partners and us would clear level 1 in auto. And in one of our semifinals matches, we actually made it. We cleared level 3. We just needed to spin the control panel. We were the first alliance to ever do that before like 148 and 118 went off and did it and spun the control panel. So that was really awesome to be the first team to do that. And it's because we knew it was fine. Okay, second crazy thing we do. Wake-up calls. So here's an example. This is Renee. Renee is the head of your software team and a member of your drive team. Very important to your team. Renee stayed up all night tweaking that auto that wasn't quite right on practice day. And Renee just made a huge mistake. She hit the snooze. She's supposed to get up and she hit the snooze. Renee's team is now in for a rough morning as they wait for Renee to arrive and are unable to test their code. Don't end up like Renee or Renee's team. They need her. Set up wake-up calls. So this is particularly important for local regionals and for mornings of events where you leave in the morning and people need to catch the bus. We have this issue because we have students coming in from all 5 boroughs of New York. And when we go to the New York City regional, everyone's commuting every morning. Some of them need to wake up at some students need to wake up at 5 in the morning. So we have a network of wake-up calls that we run where students will call each other to make sure that no one oversleeps. I myself take advantage of this and ask the students to call me because I'm also worried I'm going to oversleep. And this is how we guarantee that absolutely no one is late, especially the people who we absolutely need and are critical to our team's success. And I often find that, especially at the New York City regional, there are teams who are set back in the morning because of someone overslept. And this can really kill your whole season. You lose a morning, you fall behind, and you're just behind the 8 ball. And the best teams at a competition, the winning teams at a competition, they are not struggling with this. So do wake-up calls, especially at those local events, and especially when you're catching a bus in the morning. Maniac move number 4, seat runners. So where you sit in the stands definitely matters. So you need to, when the doors open in the morning, you need to have people who run to get you seats. Now, running is not allowed. They always say no running. So walk fast, I guess. Don't push over anybody. Be careful. But we have people who, will hustle ahead, get seats. We try to get as many people there as possible because we don't want to throw our jackets on the tie row. That's ours now, right? We want to have people there so the other teams are no. Because if you just go there with one person and say, this is my row now, other teams are going to be and justifiably so, they're going to say, get out of here. You're not taking all this as one person. So we generally have our head strategist or someone will pick out the spot in the stands they want us to sit. And they will organize everyone and everyone will rush in the morning to get those spots. Your scouts need good seats. So get those good seats. We generally go for middle back so we can have a bird's eye view, and also the back seats are usually have a slightly better view. It depends where you are. I recommend you don't be a jerk about this. Be hustle, try to get those seats, but if someone else gets a seat or you know, you weren't successful, or someone else is like, hey, you can't take up all these spots, don't be a jerk about it. It's one of my favorite things about FRC competitions is they reward being nice to each other. If you are a jerk in the stands and you're wearing your team shirt, if one of our students is wearing a 694 shirt and is a jerk to someone, well, then they're going to go off to their team and say, hey, 694 is a bunch of jerks. And they're going to find every reason not to pick you, and they're going to find every reason to beat you. People should enjoy playing with you, right? I think that when teams find out they're in a match with 694, they're happy about that, not just because of the quality of our robots, but because our team members are kind. And even when they're rushing to get stands and working their hind parts off to get those seats, they still will be like, okay, I didn't get those seats. That's okay. I'll figure out a different plan quickly. So don't be a jerk about it. There are definitely teams who are kind of jerks about this, and I think they get a reputation for it. So you don't want to end up like that. So I was actually looking for a video last night of, you know, the stampede of people rushing into the stands. So I thought it'd be cool to like have a GIF. So I went on First Robotics' I went on the FRC website, and this was the first video. I thought it was awesome. Like, I was playing this, hoping to see like a video from Champs of teams rushing in. This is like at Champs. The first video of the stands they show is us in the front section. This is our team in the front section at Champs. Best seats in the house. I'm unsure. This might have been from when we made our run to Einstein, so they gave them to us. I'm not positive, but I'd like to imagine that we rushed and got those seats right up front and center, because we often do. Okay. Maniac move number 5. Always be the first to come and always be the last to leave. This goes for competitions. This goes for meetings. Anything that's a team activity, be the first to show up and last to leave. Most of the time, the people who are there are the people who are put in charge of stuff. The people who are there are the ones who are going to be the best at things, because they're the ones, you know, if you're really passionate about something, well, then it shouldn't be a problem to be, you know, the first one there and the last one out, because you love this stuff. I love this stuff. I always want a little bit more competition, so I show up as early as possible and I stay as late as I can. Same goes for meetings. The team can't meet anymore unless I'm there, so I guess that doesn't really work, but I'll always show up on time and I will stay late because I love this stuff. So when it comes to competitions, being in the pit, working on the robot, getting ready for the next day, how bad do you want to win? You know, utilize every minute. Do you want to win bad enough to stay later than that team? Do you want to win bad enough to be there before that other team to get those seats in the stands? You know, I want our team to be the hungriest at the competition. You know, we might not have the best robot always. We might not necessarily have the, you know, the top mentors. You know, our mentors are kind of like a hodgepodge. We have really great engineers, software and mechanical. We have really great marketing mentors, but it's just people who are passionate about the stuff who show up. Some teams have like NASA engineers. We don't have that. So how can we compete with those teams? We better want it as bad or better than all those teams. And how can we say we want it more if some other team is staying later or showing up before us? This changes a little bit with the no bag day. I found that this year at the Palmetto competition, at the end of the day, we were like, okay, there's really nothing for us to work on. The robot's in good shape. We're just staying here for posterity's sake. We can go home early today. Let's get some sleep. You'll get positive dividends for that. So this has definitely shifted a little bit with the no bag rules. But this applies just as much to being present for meetings as it does for competitions. And I said that already. But I want to highlight a problem that we had on 694 in 2018 and 2019. During the weekend meetings and vacation day meetings, we would have issues with attendance where students wouldn't show up till like, let's say meeting was from 10 to 5, students wouldn't show up till 1. You know, that was a common problem for us. And this included core members, really passionate members, because they were, you know, they were at school all week and they're tired. They have lots of schoolwork. So our students have insane amounts of schoolwork at Stuyvesant. You know, a bunch of other schools, you know, you guys have the same problem. So what I decided this year is, hey, we have this foam game piece. Let's do dodgeball before meetings start on Saturdays and weekends and any other day we're meeting where there's no school, where they're not just coming after their classes. Let's do something fun to encourage students to show up on time. So this year we met, I believe our meeting schedule was 12 to 5. So I would actually show up at like 11:30. I would go into the gym. The gymnastics group was wrapping up. You can actually see them in the back of this video. We'd set up dodgeball and we'd play for half an hour. And I would hear, I would see students showing up in numbers that I'd never seen before. I'll show you the video of us playing dodgeball here. Students would show up in droves. This was before the meeting would start. We'd have this many kids on just a regular Saturday, not even at the end of build season. It's a big deal for us to have that. It really helped productivity. And I would hear kids who relate to it, who just showed up on time just for the meeting, would be like, oh man, I missed dodgeball. And I loved hearing that, because that meant, hey, I found a way to encourage kids to show up on time without going, I'm really annoyed that kids aren't showing up on time. We're doing something fun. So this is something that really helped, and I want to keep doing this in future years. I recommend you steal it. And if you come up with something cool like this, share it. I want to know what it is as well, because we're always looking for new stuff to make it fun for kids to be on time. Okay. Maniac move number 6, practice day critical path. We call it a practice day plan. I'll start by saying that if you want to know who will be the 1 seed and the first pick at a competition, you don't really need to watch quals. You don't really need to watch anything other than practice matches. Now, this isn't always true, obviously. This is a generalization. But if you watch practice matches, you'll usually be able to tell who the best 2 robots are at a competition just from those matches alone. They're usually in the first 4 to 5 matches. They usually have a few problems, and they usually sort them out pretty fast. And by their last practice match, they're good to go. They get inspected right away. They hit the field right away, and they work out their kinks, and they make sure their drivers are comfortable. You need to make sure that you are properly prepared for practice day. A lot of teams overlook this fact. This factor. The importance of practice day, the importance of getting on the field early. We try to get out on practice match 1. That's like always our goal for build season. Be out there for practice match 1 of our first competition. Usually we'll end up in practice match 2 or 3, which is fine, and really the same thing. We still go, oh man, I wish we'd gotten practice match 1, because that's the ultimate goal. But getting out there for those early practice matches is how you sort out problems with the actual field. No matter what you do at home, it's not going to be as good as being there on the actual field. Even if you're at a second regional and you've already played at a field, that other field is slightly different. Testing out your autos on that new field is really, really important. So you want to know how the powerhouses are always on top of their stuff from the get-go? They always have a plan. They show up to competition. They're not like, oh, okay, what should I do now? No. They have a series of people who are like, okay, here's what we're doing in the morning. We have a schedule, we have a plan, and we're going to get it done. Here's one of ours. This is from the 2019 Tech Valley Regional. This is our practice day schedule made by our very own Naveed Kashem, who is an alumni of the team, and I believe he made this. Eric Chen might have made it. So it's really, really specific. So 8:30 a.m. pits open, 9 to 11, field open for measurements, calibration, 12 p.m. practice matches begin. Important time stuff for practice day. Okay. Load in. Who's the crew loading in? All right. Schedule. Everything we're doing from 8:30 to 11. The theme is get legal. What are we doing and who is doing it? Everything we're doing and who is doing it. 11 a.m. get inspected. Sometimes we run ahead of schedule. Sometimes we run behind, and we tweak from there. We play practice matches, and then we have a wild card list, stuff that we want to work on if we have free time. It depends on the season. With no bag, again, this changes a lot because you're not making as many changes to the robot. But sometimes you are. I think a lot of teams are still going to be making changes to their robot throughout competition, because as soon as they attend the competition, things change for them. Okay. So our goal is usually, unless we're making a significant robot change, get inspected immediately. Because after you get inspected, you can play as many practice matches as you like. The way it works is there are two stages of inspection. Although I think they might have changed this. I don't really know because we've been doing it the same way for years. That's irrelevant. There's always the safety inspection, which allows you to do a practice match, but it's the practice match you're scheduled for. And then there is the full inspection. And if you do that, if there's a spot open at a practice match, you can fill it. And usually at the regional and district level, especially early on, there's lots of space. So we go to our first regional. I'm handed a practice match schedule. I don't really even look at it because our goal is to get inspected and fill. And a lot of the best teams, that's what they do. They go, they get the robot ready, they get inspected, they fix any issues they have with inspection, and then they go. We keep extra batteries on our robot cart so that we can, and our other colored bumpers, so we can just go right from the field back to the queue in circles until something breaks, and then we go back to the pit and fix it, and then we go back to the field and we play, and we try to get in as many practice matches as we can. These are important for auto tweaking. These are important for robot improvement, and these are so important for making your drivers feel comfortable in the game and comfortable with the robot. Try to play as many practice matches as you can and make a plan so that you're able to execute that, so that you're able to get inspected fast. Tips for inspection: talk to the inspectors as soon as you arrive, even if you're not ready for inspection. Get a feel for when they're going to be ready to do inspections. Sometimes the inspectors are ready to go right away. Sometimes they are helping with load-in, and they're not going to start inspections till 10 a.m., 11 a.m., and that'll affect your schedule. So I recommend talking to them, getting a feel for what their schedule is going to look like. And then as soon as you're ready, or really as soon as you're close to ready, let them know you're ready and ask them what they want you to do. So sometimes they want you to come over and get weighed and sized first. Sometimes they'll just come to you. So get a feel for that as well. Get as much out of the way. Try to schedule it as best you can so that inspection happens as fast as possible. And if possible, find out who the fast inspectors are or the thorough inspectors. We like to try to get the most thorough inspector to inspect our robot early in the season because we'll find the problems so that we don't have those issues later on. Before, some of you probably know who Howard Cohen is. He used to not be a mentor on our team. He is now, so he can't inspect our robots. But I used to love having him inspect our robot because he was crazy about it. He would check every detail, find every little problem so that when we get to champs, we don't have an issue. So yeah, make a practice day plan. So just a little anecdote. I use the term critical path. So we only started doing these lists in like 2016, maybe 2015, because when I first joined the workforce, I worked at a charter school called Success Academy. Those who are New Yorkers probably know what that is. And they are crazy about test days, like state tests. And they would make these plans, these critical paths, they call them, where they said where every teacher was, where every student was, at what time they were. And I looked at this list and I would think to myself, obviously wouldn't say it out loud because I don't want my bosses to get mad at me, but I would say this is freaking crazy. This is a test. We're going to make kids come in and they're going to do what they do on the test. If they don't do well, that's one thing. If they do well, it's another thing. I always felt like we shouldn't be pushing our kids to do better through these like artificial, like making this full plan so everything's just perfect for them. But I looked at this plan, I was like, damn, this would be really good for an FRC competition, just making this list of where everyone's going to be, at what time, what everyone's going to be doing, who's working on what. And we started in 2016 and it made a world of difference. And our students have really kind of clung to this planning, and it really, really helps at competitions, especially on practice days. It really makes a big difference. I think, you look at the difference in our team from 2016 on, I think that has a lot to do with it. Okay. Maniac move number 7, your very own practice field. One of my least favorite things is waiting for the practice field. I hate waiting for the practice field. If you need it, send someone in the morning, make sure they're fast, make sure they're, when the stands open, when the field opens and people are running to the stands, have one person go to the practice field and sign up and just wait there until, sometimes the volunteer is not there. Sometimes the volunteer is not there and you need to wait for them. So they'll wait and they'll pick a spot, but try to avoid using the practice field. Sorry, excuse me one sec. I have allergies today. Yeah, do your best to avoid the practice field. How? Simulate the practice field as best you can in your pit. This is really crazy. This is a maniac move. It makes a world of difference. The floor of our pit is always carpet, so that the same as the field. So we have a slice of field carpet that's a 10 by 10 square that we roll out, and we get a new one every few years. And that'll be the floor of our pit. It's nice to walk on, and if we need to test the robot on the ground, test encoders, test the gyro, it's always better to test it on the actual carpet you're going to have on the ground. And simulate any field elements that you can. In 2017, we had the peg. That was really easy. You just had like the wood thing and the peg. We just took it from our practice field. We had that, and we actually made, you know, the auto routines were so small in 2017. Those of you who were around there know that it was just like move forward a few feet. I think it's like 8 feet, I think it was. And we actually developed auto routines at competitions in our practice field, in our pit. And doing that at a competition practice field is a nightmare. You know, you only have 10 minutes, and how much of that do you spend setting up and taking your robot away? And you really have to be kind of on it when you're on that practice field to develop an auto routine. But in your pit, you're just working. You have the time that you have. So that really helped us in 2017 for sure. And then we didn't need it as much because we didn't shoot balls really, but boiler, a lot of teams use a trash can in 2017 and just raised it to the right height because that was the same diameter as the actual boiler on the field. In 2018, there wasn't really a great thing to do, but you could cleverly stack the cubes to check the heights of, you know, your scale autos. We didn't do much of this. 2019, it really came back. We had the rocket panel in the back of our pit with the vision targets, so we can test all the heights, like encoder heights for our lift, and we could test any CV alignment stuff we wanted to test. We didn't really have autos in 2019, but we could test like our CV autonomous-ish movement. And we could test the human player station too, because that was the same height as the level 1 goal. And then we actually built, we didn't have this at our first competition, but we built a step. We took our step from home. We put wheels on the bottom of it and a handle so we can drive it around. So we had basically the step from 2019 in our pit. Here is it in action. You can kind of see some students working on a project. In Champs, the pit next to us was empty because there was just like there was an extra pit, odd number of teams or something. So the pit next to us was empty. So we just set up our step and like set up a practice field in the pit next to ours. And then we had kids going to work on making this cheesecake suction cup that we were thinking about maybe putting on a partner robot in eliminations. It didn't end up working out that way, but they got it working. We called it the Cheesecake Factory. This was like the last year of Cheesecake. It was called the Cheesecake Factory. I was a big fan of that name. This was super handy because if we ever needed to test our climber, we didn't need to go to the practice field. We can just do it right there. It was also really useful because we had that suction cup mechanism, and we wanted to show our partners in qualification matches how this works, like how much space we need. So we had like a spare suction cup. We would bring the step to our partners' pits. They would put their robot on it, and we'd show them kind of like how much space they had. This was inspired by Team 2056, who was a partner of ours in a qualification match at IRI in 2018, and they had a spare set of forks and like the little step that was on the bottom, the little ramp. I don't know what it was called. But there was like the scaling thing, and then there was the ground you sat on. It was like an elevated platform. So they had the elevated platform, and they had a spare set of forks. And they had us go over with our robot and get a feel for how to drive onto it. And this was one of the best teams at getting that 4RP match in 2018. And this was a big reason why. And I saw that, and I was really impressed. I had never thought of doing something like that to like kind of that extreme of it, having the spare parts so they don't need the robot to demonstrate it, having the field element in their pit so they don't need to use a practice field, and having a system set up where they don't need to use their robot's resources to get a successful routine in place with their partner. And they did this consistently, and it helped. So they did this process consistently and helped them be one of the best 4RP teams in the world. They went to Einstein that year, had one of my favorite bots that year for sure, one of the best robots in the world, one of the simplest, cleanest robots that year. Just make sure there's nothing else I wanted to say about this. Yeah, in 2020, we just had the bar so we can test climbing. We just had like a pipe in the pits. I would have liked to make a simulated goal panel somehow. The season got cut off before we did anything like that, but I would like to have a goal in our pit in some way. And then we also had a vision target, just like on a piece of wood that we would walk around with. So whenever possible, try to simulate your practice field, the practice field in your pit. It can be really helpful. Maniac move number 8, the pre-match checklist. So things go wrong. Often the same things go wrong. You need to make sure that problems don't repeat themselves by making a pre-match checklist. Now, obviously, if you're having like an electrical issue and you haven't solved it, that's one thing. That problem's going to repeat itself. I mean, like your battery unplugged because the terminal connection was loose. Well, you should be checking that terminal connection every match for the rest of your team's existence, in my opinion. We had our battery unplug like just for a second in 2013 in an elimination match, and we turned off. So now we zip tie our battery terminals together, like where the battery plugs in, we zip tie it together. There are clips that we should probably be using instead that we can 3D print, and I'm sure we'll look into that in the future. But that's on our checklist every year because it just happened that one time. And what can happen is if you don't have these lists, these mistakes can happen multiple times throughout a season and multiple times throughout, you know, the length of your team's existence. So we have this pre-match checklist where it's, you know, specific to the robot, but we also have like stuff that obviously transfers from year to year, like a basic electrical check. And we don't go on the field until that checklist is done. Now, I see there's exceptions to the rule. You have a few seconds, the robot's ready to go, you know it's ready to go, and you have no time. You got to get on the field or you can't be on the field. We're going to make exceptions for that. But in general, we don't hit the field until this checklist is done. And this checklist usually gets longer as the season progresses, as you like learn specific things about your robot, what little issues it has, what little things you need to check before it hits the field. Maybe sometimes, you know, one thing loosens in one segment of your robot. There's nothing you can really do to fix it long term. So you just check it every match. It's on your list. Maybe there is a part of your robot that tends to shear over time. That's on your list. Maybe something gets over tight because it's turning in a certain way that causes it to tighten. That's on your list. These checklists are a must for high level and consistent success from match to match. I think that most really strong teams do this. I'm sure not all, right? Every team, you know, you're surprised you work with a team who you thought was like the best team in the world, and then you're like, wow, they didn't really do that much that impressed me. But I do think that most teams do this. Here's what ours look like in 2019. Is at the end of the season, obviously we had a full season to kind of go through, and you see kind of all the things. So systems check is always the first thing. Sometimes it's the last thing. It depends. Like sometimes we usually want to do the systems check last. Depends what you're fiddling with. So like you don't want to do a systems check and then do an electronics check where you're checking your wires, because if you pull on a wire and you loosen something and now that thing can't work, you probably want to do that wire check before you do the systems check, or maybe even as you do the systems check. We check our encoder values, put into starting configuration, all this stuff. Compress, we want to make sure we are at 120 PSI before we get on the field. We don't want the compressor running during the match and sucking our robot's battery. We actually will often, with our laptop, disable the compressor because we don't want it to run in the match because it sucks power. New battery zip tie strap, little things from the year, nuts and bolts check. Whenever we're sitting around, we do a nuts and bolts check. Things we need to have with us on our operator interface, things you want to check, et cetera, et cetera. The students work on making this better throughout the year. Here's what it looked like in 2020. Now, keep in mind, we only attended one event in 2020, so we didn't really get that chance to improve on this. But here's like all the things that we wanted to systems check, getting in starting configuration, all the little details we want to check, electronics checks, electronic specific checks that we want to make. This really helps. This can really, 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 really help. I recommend that teams do this. I think all teams should do this. Okay, so make a checklist. Make a checklist. Here's us going through our pre-match checklist at our competition this year. I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear the audio. It's competition audio, so it's a little bad anyway. Here, let me skip to the part where it's the system checklist. Okay.
System check.
Students are checking all the systems, checking the climber, making sure everything is working, and the students are observing what's happening to see if anything goes wrong, anything looks a little bit off. And meanwhile, we are compressing. And everyone's pretty silent, it's pretty calm, because they've done it a million times. Looking at every little thing. In a previous match, so they're listening to see if there's any leaks. They're looking closely at every operation to make sure everything is okay. Robots ready. They did that over that took about 1 minute. They got everything ready. They're looking it over. And now that they're done with the systems check, they're going through the rest of the checklist. They're putting on a fresh battery. They don't use the competition battery, the one we're going to use in the match, for the systems check, because we want to make sure that the battery we use is fully charged, especially because we're compressing off of that old battery. Swap the battery, check everything, make sure everything is tight. Operator interface gets packed up and ready to go. Everything's good. They do this so many times that they can do it fast. Everyone knows what their role is. Everyone knows what they need to do, so that this can happen in 2 minutes. If you keep watching this video, and I'll cut it off here, we go on the field in about a minute after this. So this needed to be fast, but everyone's pretty calm. Looking at these kids, I wouldn't say, hey, we have a match for sure in the next 2.5 minutes, but we do. And they're ready. They're calm because they know how long everything takes. They've done this so many times. They know everything's tight. Alan over here is checking that the bumpers are good. Eric's checking the bumpers. I'm doing nothing because I don't need to do anything. They know what to do. Okay. Let me continue from here. Maniac move number 9, working with the referees. First thing you should know, mentors shouldn't be speaking to refs about matches, students only. I know a lot of us FRC maniacs are mentors. There are some students, and I think a lot of those students are future, FRC mentor maniacs. If you're a maniac when you're a student, you're going to be an FRC mentor, I bet. Mentors shouldn't be speaking to refs about matches. So about matches, you can talk to referees. I like to get to know the referees because they're volunteers, they're humans. I'm a referee. I like to, see who the referees are, get to meet them. You can even ask them questions if you're a mentor about rule specific things, if you're curious about something, if you're not sure how something works. But you shouldn't be talking to them about your match. You shouldn't be talking to them about something where I think you made the wrong call, referee, can you overturn it? That's not the mentor's place. The students do that. That's in the rule book, and separate from it being in the rule book, I think that's correct. You need to make sure you designate someone on your drive team for this job. This is not an easy job, talking to referees. You need someone who's almost like a lawyer. You need someone who really understands the rules at a high level. And you need someone who's confident, because they are speaking to an adult, someone in a position of authority, and they are a kid. So if this is not an easy job, you shouldn't just be like, oh, you go. I think this is something that should be trained before you ever arrive at a competition. We always take one member of our drive team, we select, that's the person who's going to talk to the refs. It's usually pretty obvious who that right person is, but not always. I'll often have students where I don't expect it, and they'll say, I want to do this. In 2020, our student who did that, Jin, I didn't expect this from him, but he was like, I want to do this task. I think I can do it well. And maybe he wasn't my first choice right away for it, but as soon as he said that, I was like, okay, great. He's going to do a great job of this because he wants to do it. So I went through the rules with him, make sure he understood it really well. And before he talks to referees, we do a debrief. We talk about what he's going to talk to the referee about. We talk to referees a lot. We try to not be annoying, but it's okay to be a bit annoying. It's okay to be like, hey, the 694 just lost. Okay, of course they're in the box. It's okay to be a little bit like that. But if you lose a match, there's no penalty for talking to a referee. Don't be scared of them. Don't be like, oh, it's not going to work out. If you think that something is wrong, maybe you're wrong. Maybe you misunderstood the rule. Maybe you missed something and the referee needs to explain it. But you never know. You might be right. In 2019, at Champs, in the Lims, in quarterfinals, We played quarterfinal match 2, and we should have won. That match was a replay. We should have won. The other alliance ended up winning that match because, so they had 2 robots start on level 1 and a robot start on level 3, or on level 2, or it might have been all 3 robots on level 1. But they got credit for all 3 robots being on level 2 or something like that. The level 1, level 2s were incorrect when the referee entered into the system before the match, and that alliance was credited with the bonus points. We ended up losing by like 1 or 2 points, and we should have won that match. And we were eliminated. Our season was over. But a student noticed this, and then our alliance captain 4039, they had a student drive coach who went over there, and he knew how to talk to referees, and he knew how to explain the problem. I spoke to him before he went there. His name is Noah, really smart guy. If any of you have ever worked with him, really great kid. He went over and he talked to the referees and he explained the situation, and the referees ended up giving us a replay. Now, I personally think it should have been we win the match because there was no material change. It was just, hey, this was just scored wrong. Can we fix the scoring? But we ended up just getting a replay. We ended up going on and winning that quarterfinal round. We won the next 2 matches and we advanced to semis. But Noah wasn't scared to talk to a referee. He'd done it before and he knew what he was doing. Now, I happen to think that if we were the alliance captain, we maybe would have gotten that match as a win for us, but maybe not. I don't know. The fact that he got us a replay is really incredible. Our season was over. We were pulled back from the dead because we knew how to talk to the referees, because 4039 knew how to talk to the referees. So I applaud them for having their students ready for that, because they were our alliance captain and they were ready to do it, because the alliance captain is the one who's supposed to speak to the refs. This can be really, really important. This can be the difference between winning and losing an event. So know how to talk to the referees, get to know them early, have a friendly relationships. Don't be a jerk. Again, you don't want the refs to not like your team, for sure. Be friendly, but it's okay to be a bit annoying, to kind of go there. The refs are nice people. They're volunteering. Remember that. Don't be a maniac with them, though. Okay. Maniac rule number 1. So we're going a little bit off from the moves to the first rule. So Maniac rule number 1, you are either coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. This is Mike Leach. He's a crazy football coach. I don't love him, but I love this quote. You're either coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. I like to think about this quote when I'm thinking about approach to working with alliance partners. There's nothing worse in my mind from hearing from someone else than these phrases. We had some bad partners, or our partners didn't know the rules, committed a bunch of penalties. That's not good enough. Your schedule is your schedule. Deal with it. Figure out how to win. The best teams figure out how to win regardless of their schedule. The best teams figure out how to seed high or be the first pick regardless of their schedules. And I hear this complaint all the time. Our partners were bad, or our partners didn't know the rules. You know the rules, right? I hope. Do your partners? You can tell them the rules. You know the strategy, but do their drivers? You need to make sure, you need to confirm that their drivers understand it, not just their strategy person. You understand the mistake that a team keeps making over and over and over again. Do they understand it? You've caught it. Why aren't you telling them? If a team is on your alliance, you can make them better. You have that ability. If you are an FRC maniac, you understand the game at a high level, you have the ability to make this team better by just telling them the information they don't know. There's so much that can be gained just by a team knowing the information that they're missing. You can give them feedback. You can encourage them. Sometimes a team needs encouragement. Sometimes a driver needs encouragement and struggling just because their drive coach is kind of a jerk. I'm not going to name names. We've definitely have teams where we've picked them, and I picked up right away their drive coach is being a jerk to their driver, and their driver's not responding to it. And then I will kind of take that driver under my wing, get to know their name, get to know them, and just be encouraging throughout. Tell them what they're doing great. And I will get better performances all the time out of these drivers and out of these teams just off of that alone. You can make these teams better by being, by just catching what they're doing wrong, being that coach for them. I hate when people complain about what their partners did. The partners are part of you. Like, the partners are on your team this time. I'm not going to complain that my team is doing all of these things wrong. I'm not going to complain that my partner's doing all these things wrong. I'm a coach. I'm here to help. You are an FRC maniac. You are there to help your team be more successful. Give your partners the feedback. You're either fixing the problem or it's you only have I made a typo there, or you only have yourself to blame when a penalty is committed. What we do to help protect us against this, we definitely have partners who commit penalties just like everyone else, but we do everything we can to help with this. We do an HP rules list. So our human player, generally it's our human player, sometimes it's not, we'll go over and talk to our partners before a match and make sure they are super familiar with the rules. Here's our rules list from 2018. So, I'm not going to go through this entire thing, but just a quick recap of what all the important rules are. And then a lot of times that person will check in with our strategy team, see if there's a mistake that a team keeps making. Usually the strategy team will bring that up before we play the match, and our rules list person will explain it. So we go through this with our partners. We make sure they are, on top of what all the common penalties are so that they don't make them. And we are generally, we pride ourselves on not only not committing many penalties. There are definitely some seasons we commit more than others. I think in 2019, we were like absurdly high in penalties because we just kept on crossing the line. A rollout was so long. I'm not going to get into that. It was my fault. It was totally my fault that a rollout was so long in 2019. I suggested it. But we don't only pride ourselves on avoiding penalties. We pride ourselves on getting our partners to lower how many penalties they commit. And this is one of the ways we do it. We make sure that they are super familiar with the rules before they get out there, especially with the common mistakes early in the season. Usually there's something that human players are doing very often. In 2020, it was taking the balls and putting them on the corral before auto ended. I saw a lot of fouls for that. That's something where all our human players on our lines knew, don't do that. It's a foul. And there's one thing every year, and it's usually for the human player, and it's usually a common foul, and teams lose matches because of it. And then I hear teams complaining about it, and then inside I smile a little bit because I'm like, we don't have that problem because we are crazy about this, and we want to make sure, we're at a maniacal level of telling people what the rules are if they're on our lines. Okay, continuing. Move number 10, get to know the event you are at. Really get to know it. I personally meet every team, or try to, rather. I go around the pits. I spend about an hour doing this, and I look at every single robot. I try to get to know a couple of members of each team, ask them about their robot. This isn't pit scouting. This is just me getting to know the competition, getting a feel for who the best robots are, who the potentially good robots are, all that stuff. This is a really awesome thing to do, even if you aren't competing at events. I do this at events where where I'm volunteering, because I just like to get to know teams. Networking in FRC has become a big part of my life. It really helped me get the job I currently have. I don't think I would have gotten it if it wasn't for networking. And I know a lot of people who, have made really strong connections at FRC events, just going around talking to people. You don't need to be in a match with someone to get to know them. And it also is really helpful because you kind of get a feel for the competition at the event, how many teams there are that can climb, so on and so forth. I also pre-scout every team and watch any and all matches they have played so far in season. This includes at champs, all the matches. So every team in our division, I watch all their matches. This is an insane amount of time to put into something when I'm an adult and I have, other responsibilities. I'm a teacher. I have work to do. But I love this stuff. I love watching matches. I love learning about these teams. I love being like, wow, that's a cool robot. I can't wait to see it in person in Detroit. So I pre-scout every team in our division and watch any and all matches they have played so far in the season. Sometimes at champs, I let this slip. Depends how busy I am. But instead of watching movies and TV for a few weeks, I just do this. And the night before Limbs, I try to watch as many matches on the Blue Alliance as I can from the day before, especially the last few. What I'll generally do is I'll start with the most recent qualification match and work my way backwards. I'm a drive coach, so I don't get to watch a ton of matches. So this is one way that I tackle missing those matches and still getting a feel for the competition. I just start at the last match and work my way backwards, get as far as I can. I'll often fall asleep with a laptop in my hotel room bed. Because I'm just in the middle of matches, and sometimes they'll just keep going, right? The YouTube loop just keeps going, showing more matches. Maniac move number 11. Be the limbs guru. So a lot of people don't know these things. A limbs is a different game. It's a different game than quals. That's why a lot of the same teams always get picked for a limbs. A team that's struggling, who has had success in the past, gets picked because they know how to handle their business, and they have members and mentors who know how to handle their business when they get to the elimination rounds. And when you don't know this stuff, when one thing goes wrong, you tend to panic, and you see the teams that panic. I see the mistakes that are made. I can see it coming. I'd be like, wow, they just had that issue. And I see that like a team will break, and I'll see that their team is kind of scrambling to fix something, and they're like kind of running all over the place, and they're screaming like they're not ready for this moment. So do whatever you can to put yourself in a position to be successful in the limbs. Know all the rules for limbs, all the little details that don't come up in quals. So for starters, know the bracket rules and who plays who and when, and this corresponding bumper colors. So here I've laid out for you the bumper colors for every alliance, 1 through 8. Quarters is the first row, or column rather. Quarters is the first column, semis is the second column, and finals is the third column. And it doesn't matter what alliance number you are. If you're the 8 alliance, you're blue the first time, and you beat the 1 alliance, you're red the rest of the way. It's that simple. It doesn't matter if you face the 2 alliance or the 3 or higher seeded alliance. It always works this way. So you could just kind of know that going in. You know, I know, okay, we're the 6 alliance. We just need blue bumpers. We're the 1 alliance. We just need red bumpers. We're the 8 alliance and we just won. Okay, we just need red bumpers the rest of the way. Or we're the 3 alliance and we just won our first match, blue bumpers the rest of the way. Knowing this stuff is very helpful because you can just tell your partners these are the bumpers you need, and you don't have that kind of moment of, wait, which bumpers are we supposed to have? I'll often find our partners like that, and I will just, you know, as soon as we go into a limbs, I'll be like, okay, we're the 4 alliance. I go to our partners and I'm like, all right, we're going to be red in quarters, blue in semis, red in finals. So like as soon as we get out of quarters, I'll say, okay, we're switching to blue, regardless of who we play. And then the bracket rules: 1 plays 8, 2 plays 7, 3 plays 6, 4 plays 5. That's always pretty simple for people to get. And the bracket holds regardless of who you beat. So the winner of 1 and 8 plays the winner of 4 and 5, regardless of 8, if 8 and 4 win, or regardless of what happens everywhere else, those winners play each other. The winner of 2, 7 plays 3, 6, and then the remaining 2 play in the final. So the bracket doesn't matter. The seeds go out the window once you get into the bracket. Other thing, your drive team is at lunch. I hear that so often after alliance selections are over. It drives me crazy. Your drive team should be eating lunch during alliance selections and be back before they are over. They need to be ready for that alliance sit down when the alliance comes together. I really get frustrated when I find out a team that we just picked is gone somewhere because we lose. We only have a certain amount of time, right? Let's say we want to test something or try something or learn about each other or talk through strategy. We only have a certain amount of time. So for lunch to eat into that is kind of, you know, it's a huge loss. It's crazy to say like skip lunch. Don't skip lunch. Drivers should be eating lunch during alliance selections. Alliance selections last half hour to an hour. Go eat during that time. That's when your drivers should be eating. First thing we do when we find out our alliance is we do an alliance sit down. I recommend you be honest with your partners, and you push partners to be honest with you as well. We had this incredible qualification match at Champs all the way back in 2010 with a team that no longer exists, 1717, the D Penguineers, and they had this really fantastic mentor. It was my first year mentoring, and I was really inspired just planning that match with that team and with that mentor. I forget his name. I feel really embarrassed that I'm forgetting his name, but he won the MacArthur Genius Grant. He's was a really incredible, impressive guy. And he sat us all down and he said, here's what's happening for us. Here's what's been going well. And here's what's been going wrong. Here are the issues our robot runs into. And I felt in that moment, like I could be totally honest about any issues we were having. I just felt encouraged to do it. And then everyone in the alliance just talked through everything that was going wrong. We were having problems with our drivetrain. We share that. So when that happened in our match, when our drivetrain broke in that match, we had a contingency plan because we mentioned the problem. And we didn't walk out of that match with even though we lost, with our heads hung, being like, oh man, we just kind of like deceived this team, or like we messed up. It's like, hey, we were honest. We told them exactly what was going on with our robot. It happened. We had a plan, it didn't work out, and everything was okay. So when we do that alliance sit down with our alliance, you know, we all sit in a circle, and I'll always start for our alliance. I'll say, here's what's going well for us. Here's what we've been doing well, and here are the little problems we run into. And then I'll ask the partners to go in and expand on, you know, what's been going well for them. What positions do they like being in? What positions do they not like being in? You'll learn a lot just from that honesty and just being open yourselves. Your partners will be more open. And this goes for qualification matches as well. I try to do this for quals, but it's with the hustle and bustle. It's sometimes really hard to do that. But in the limbs, definitely getting to know your team, because now you're not one team playing with all these different partners. You're one alliance with 3 robots on it, and you're all working together. A lot of times our partner, you know, our second pick, they don't have the batteries they need. I say, no problem. You know, Christine, she's our student in charge of batteries last year. I say, Christine, this team needs help with batteries. Can you help them out? You know, another team, it's like our climber's having issues. Like, okay, this is Brianna. She was in charge of our climber this year. Brianna, can you go take a look at their climber and help them out? You know, just having that conversation, you can really help your alliance a lot. Timeout rules to know about timeouts. So there's a timeout coupon window. You should know what this rule is. You have 2 minutes after the match before yours ends. So if you are in a quarterfinal match 2 and you need a timeout in quarterfinal match 1 just played, you got 2 minutes after that match ends to call your timeout. There's a referee panel that counts down that time. What we generally do if we think we might have a timeout is our alliance captain with the coupon, or sometimes if our alliance captain needs to work on the thing, it'll be someone else with the alliance captain band or some of the other team. We'll stand in the question box with the timeout coupon, ready to take it, watching the clock. We'll have a clock in the pit or wherever we're working, and then we'll just do a signal. We'll go over and we'll say timeout or don't take it, don't take it. And we'll, you know, sort that out so that we can take that timeout at the last possible minute. So maybe we want to save it. The other thing to note is that timeouts overlap with cooldowns when teams play back-to-back. So in finals, teams play back-to-back. So there's I believe it's a 4-minute cooldown. It might be a 6-minute cooldown. And then also if it's a tiebreaker, like let's say you are in semifinal match 4 and the first semifinal, like the 1 versus 4, that went in 2 matches, and you're in 2 versus 3 and you're going to a tiebreaker, there's also a cooldown period there. Whenever you use a timeout with a cooldown period, there's overlap. So you don't get the full 6 minutes out of your timeouts. You only get essentially a 2-minute bonus on whatever the cooldown period is. So try to take your timeouts during those other times. I will often look to see, okay, it's semifinals. We're in the first semifinal match. We kind of need a timeout. I'll be more, you know, likely to take that timeout because I know it's not as useful in finals because of that overlap. So just knowing that's really helpful. It's very different from a lot of sports. Usually in sports, the later you call a timeout, the more valuable it is. Obviously, if you have a timeout in finals and you want to take a timeout, use it. It's 2 minutes. Don't use it, right? It doesn't matter that you don't get as much time. It's not going anywhere. Like you can't take it with you. You might as well use it. But I do try to take those timeouts in quarters and semis if we need them. I'm less hesitant to save it for finals because of this overlap rule. Okay. We're almost done. Miscellaneous tips from a maniac. So these are just like kind of scatterbrained little things that I do, that we do, that help us, that are a little crazy. First thing is something we call pulse view. Other teams do it. They have different names. We do video of every match that we play, just our play that we play. We also do every session, every test. So if we're on the practice field testing something or we're running an autonomous routine, we're videotaping that and we post it to Google Drive. This also happens back at the lab when we run tests. This happens when we are running auto routines, especially. And on the field, we have a robot center, because sometimes Blue Alliance, you can't really see your robot too well. You might be obstructed by a field element. They've been doing a better job giving that full field bird's eye view for Blue Alliance over the last few years, but sometimes they have that thing where it just zooms to random parts of the field. It's like, a robot's about to score. Let me flash to this robot that's doing nothing. Okay, the robot's done scoring. Let's see where they're at. Okay, the score changed. I guess things happen. That's not really useful. So we do what we call pulse view. We take video of us on the field. This is really useful for debugging issues. You can catch what went wrong. We also have LEDs on our robot generally, and we try to, I've been trying to have a push for us having those LEDs correspond with actions on the field. So that also helps with debugging. So you can watch the video and see like when something broke, what happened. Like maybe you can catch it on the video. I try to get high quality footage, not just an iPhone, or a phone rather. But a phone works, you know. Some of these phones have great videos. We have a student in charge of this usually. The student who founded this, she actually decided to leave the team last year because what was best for her. But this kind of like continued, and we have other students who are running it since she not graduated, but left the team. And it's also perfect batch film for drivers because they can, you know, it's robot centric, so they can see every move they made. And our drivers often will review, and I have to make a better push for this, but our drivers will review this footage. I think a lot of times the driver is the one who's like self-motivating, like I'm gonna go and watch this footage every match. And if we're doing well, they generally don't watch as much. As a coach, I think I need to do a better job of encouraging it. Definitely have room for improvement on 694. Other thing, get scouts to work on final day of quals. So get them back to the hotel early. Sometimes we will leave in 2 groups on the last day of quals so that our scouts can get back and get to work. It's really hard to work in the stands at the level they need to. They can get all set up with their boards and their sheets and their data in the hotel. Try to reserve a conference room for them at the hotel the first night you arrive. I always try to do that. When we arrive at a hotel, I'm like, okay, can we get the conference room for this night? And then try to get dinner in the hotel that night as opposed to going somewhere. You know, this obviously it's different for different regionals. If it's a local regional, you're maybe going to someone's house, but try to get those scouts out of there as fast as possible so that they're not staying up till 2, 3 in the morning and making their pick lists. It's better to have them, you know, get that done before 10, 11 o'clock. And then another thing is having a long operator and or driver wire when needed with a USB extension. What do I mean by this? So we use game pads for our driving. A lot of teams have like custom operator interfaces. I don't think this is super useful. I like doing the gamepad just year to year. We use PS4 controllers sometimes. I think this year we had 2 PS4 controllers. We might have a PS4 controller and a gamepad. But I think, though, this is a kind of tangent, but those are great. They're consistent, easy to replace if you have issues. You don't want to get stuck on this, you know, this fancy operating interface that you're spending weeks to make perfect. I know actually a lot of the best teams use kind of like custom robot controllers, and I don't, not robot, you know what I mean, controllers for their robot. I don't think it's really necessary. I think it's not the place for it. I think you get very little benefit out of it. You can't just get from a controller. And you know, a little plus of using the gamepad is you can have like a USB extension cord as opposed to just like the length of the gamepad wire. You can have a USB extension cord plugged in, and depending on the year, you're allowed to move behind the glass to other driver stations. So like a good example is this is in 2019, our drivers had this, and our drivers would move over to the human player station so they can get a better look of the robot coming in. And just moving around the field, so, you know, see where game pieces are. They walk behind the other drivers and they see what's going on. This is a nice thing. I wish FIRST would let us use wireless controllers, but since they don't, a USB extension cord will do. Just to give credit, this is something that Mo did back in, I think, 2011. And I saw it and I was like, wow, that's a great idea. Let's do that. So Mo, Team 365, credit goes to those guys. More tips, make packing lists and have an organized pit. So students make packing lists for everything they're going to take to a competition and where everything is packed so they can find it easily, especially with spare parts. It can be really, you know, a problem if you don't know where your spare parts are, and then instead of changing stuff out, you are searching for it. So that being organized there is really helpful, and just having an organized pit in general leads to a lot of success. I have no role in this, but it's usually very well done on our team. We have other maniacs on our team. You know, I think all the good teams have maniacs, and the best teams have more of them. So a lot of our other maniacs have to do with the packing list and organized pit. I don't really work in the pit generally, unless something is really, really wrong. I don't really touch the robot at competitions other than like lifting it up. Other thing we do is we measure the field. There's that time for robot calibration and field measurements. So we measure the field. We have designated people for this, and we have a plan for what we want to measure. So they'll have like a list of everything, and they'll just like write down what they want. to find out. We generally don't really make this plan until the day before. Ideally, we'd be better planned at this, but it still works. We take measurements on both the red side and blue side. There are sometimes little differences. We check everything that's important to us. So like last year, so this previous year in 2020, we wanted to know where the little markers were for where the balls sat in the trench because we picked those up in auto. And there were slight differences between the red and blue side. And this affected our setup. So we wanted to make sure we measured that. Also, we do this thing, we call it Limelight on a stick. We don't want to bring the robot out to calibrate because then we're losing pit time. So what we have is we have our camera, our Limelight, or we might have a spare one, I'm not sure. And we have a board with a Robo Rio, and the Limelight just plugs into that board. We have a thing that simulates the height. So I think it's a couple of power cubes from 2018, and then a piece of wood with a Velcro on the end that the Limelight straps to. It's cut at the correct angle that the Limelight is mounted on a robot. And our programmers, we have a few of them go out there during calibration and calibrate using that. So our robot never has to go on the field to do that calibration. Little side note about measurements on the actual field. We do this at all our competitions. I heard this anecdote. I don't even really know if it's true. I'd like for it to be true. But in 2018, 254 Cheesy Poofs were the best team in the world by far. Arguably one of the best robots ever. They went undefeated that year and were world champs in Houston. I heard a story that when they went for field measurements, they also went and measured another field or two other fields. And they weren't fields that they were on, right? So like let's say that I think they were on, I don't remember what field they were. Let's say they were on Newton, and they went over and they measured Archimedes, and someone asked them, "Why are you here?" And it was because Einstein was going to be played on those fields. So they're not saying like, "Hey, I'm definitely going to Einstein," but they're ready for it, right? They're not going to show up on those Einstein fields and all of a sudden their autos that they built their perfect season on aren't going to work. They're going to show up and make sure they know the exact tweaks they need to make for their autos to make it perfect for the field that they're on. That's the level of attention to detail that they have. Now that's crazy. There aren't a lot of teams that are doing that. I heard that and I said, I don't care how good or bad our robot is. We're doing that every single year. We're going to take those measurements as well when we do our measurements on our field. Or if there's another day of measurements, we're going to go to those fields. We're going to find that stuff out as well. So I don't actually know if that's true, but either way, we're doing it now. So, and we definitely don't expect to be on Einstein every year, even though like kind of our expectation is always try to get the world championship. Another thing, use the practice field for driver practice. I know I said earlier, try to avoid the practice field, but specifically at the championships, the practice field is a real field. So we try to be on that field as much as possible at the championship because you get really great practice on there. You have the best teams in the world from all the divisions doing stuff. And you get to try out interesting stuff. You get to kind of shake the cobwebs off. There are such big gaps at champs between matches that your drivers can really grow rust between those matches. They can get nervous. But if you're on that practice field and you're smooth with it and you're like going back and back and back, you're going to be a lot better with it. If you look at our matches from 2018, I think we had some of the best driving in the world at champs. I challenge you guys to find a team that drove better than that. There are definitely robots that were a little bit better. But we drove out of our minds in 2018 at champs. And it's because we were going from the field back to the practice field, back to our pit, fix anything, back to the practice field, back to the field, just keeping our drivers ready at all times. And then the last tip is have lots of batteries and get new ones every year. They do go bad. They do lose a little bit of juice from year to year. We usually get 10 to 15 every year. We donate, some teams still want our old batteries. We don't honest them like, hey, these are old batteries, and we kind of will give them away. So if you need batteries, you can always reach out to 694. If you want old batteries from old years, you can always reach out to us if you're local. But I recommend getting new ones every year, and I recommend using MK batteries. So this is something that someone turned me on to a couple of years ago. MK batteries are better, so they work better. You'll brown out less, and they're cheaper. So the only thing is you can't order them online. You have to call them. They have an FRC discount. So you say you're an FRC team, you call MK, and these are the best batteries that I've come across in FRC. This is like a real pro tip. Use MK batteries. They're great. Okay, last thing I want to say is, some Maniac pitfalls. So if you're a Maniac, You've probably had some run-ins where you did the wrong thing, you regretted it, you made a mistake. These are some of the mistakes that I've made, things I've learned the hard way. Use them as cautionary tales and learn my lesson. So first thing is not eating at competitions and not drinking water. So I used to do this a lot early on, and it made competitions a less pleasant experience. I wasn't as clear-minded because of it, and I was stubborn about it. I'm like, I'm not really hungry, whatever, I'm not going to eat. The competitions are the times that you really should be eating. So, I'll have people around me who pester me to eat. This is actually a funny video. I'll show it. This is my dad's in the background here, and this is like in the limbs at Palmetto. He's like forcing me to eat a banana right now. He's been pestering me for like, I want to say an entire round of competition. And then I end up eating this banana. So it's like, there's this running joke that my dad just going, banana. So like just encouraging people around you to make sure you eat if you know you have this issue. I think a lot of FRC maniacs have this issue at competition, at least on our team. One person is Naveed Kashav. He's an alum. I think I mentioned him already in this presentation. He doesn't like to eat ever, or definitely not at competitions. So the other students will, or I guess now the students, since he's a mentor now, will be like, Naveed, make sure you eat. It's important. The other thing is behaving immaturely. This isn't in the fun, like, look at this adult, he's being silly. Like, that's fine, right? We love that in first, is adults being silly and a little bit childish and just not having fun. That's great. I'm talking about like getting frustrated with your team, getting frustrated with members of your team who aren't, being at the level you want them to be, or like maybe your performance. Don't be that person. I've definitely made that mistake many times. I try to be honest and reflective and, apologize when I do it. I like to say I don't do it anymore, but we all are human. We all make mistakes. And it's easy when you're so crazy about something, when you're so obsessed about something, to say something that you regret. I haven't said anything like offensive. I've just gotten, frustrated with, like, we made a mistake and I got frustrated at a situation. And I think a lot of us have been there. And you should, be mindful of it, what you're bringing forward to the rest of your team, to the other teams at a competition, making sure that you are, above all else, making sure everyone's having a good time. Because ultimately, first is about more than robots. It's about more than the competition. It's about teaching kids. It's about people having fun. It's about having fun with STEM. And if you're not having fun, or if someone's not having fun, it's because of you. What are you doing? That's not what we're here for. So I've definitely made that mistake before. I try to be honest about it. Try to be better than me. And remember, not everyone is a maniac about FRC, but FRC is for everyone. I truly believe that there is a place on an FRC team for anyone. We are a no-cut team, and I'm really proud of that fact, and our students are really proud of that. We accept everyone. Now, if someone's unsafe or they're breaking the rules, they'll get suspended, they might get kicked off. That happens very, very, very rarely. I've never kicked a student off the team, but it's possible. But we like to say FRC is for everyone. You're into media, we build a media part of the team. You are into advertising, there's lots of advertising in this. You're into engineering, well, there's lots of that. You're into sports, you're going to be on strategy. There's a place for everyone on an FRC team, regardless of how much time they're willing to put into it. So even if they're like, okay, I want to do this, but I'm not going to stay up at 2 in-the-morning doing this, that's reasonable. Let them do that. Even though you're a maniac, doesn't mean everyone has to be, and they don't have to be successful. And at all times, just make sure to keep it fun, because that's the number one thing, is make sure this is a good time. First is about making STEM fun for kids. So leave you guys with a quote. This is from Aristotle. Quality is not an act, it is a habit. If you want to be good at something, you got to do it every single time. You can't just be showing up once, trying really hard. It's not good enough. So is insanity. Go forth and be crazy. Go crazy. Be obsessive. Immerse yourself in FRC. Be an FRC maniac. Take these tips. If you already are an FRC maniac, take these tips and be better. If you have other tips, please send them my way, and I'll add them to this presentation. here's my contact info. That's my email, jgblay@gmail.com. You can also find me. I shouldn't have underlined that. That was weird. jgblay@gmail.com. And you can also find me on Chief Delphi under J Blay. And now I'll open it up for any questions. Thank you for tuning in. Ian, are there any questions?
Yeah. One question from the YouTube. Would you say after using the critical path method, it has made you a believer in your teaching career?
Interesting. So what I'll say is I love teaching. I love teaching at Stuyvesant. I think that this is kind of like a separate thing from FRC, but I think that there are schools that overemphasize testing and preparing kids for tests. And when I was teaching at Success Academy and we were doing that critical path thing, there was way too much emphasis on kids' success on tests. And I really hated that, which is one of the reasons why I left. But at Stuyvesant, I'm encouraged to do what I think is best to teach kids, and I really love it. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I really love teaching. The critical path method, I don't do that in my classroom. I do like a lesson plan and like time stuff out. But I wouldn't like for a test day, like plan out where every student is going to be. And like, I was picking up kids and parents in cabs in the morning to make sure they were on time for tests. Like that's how crazy it was. Yeah. Any other questions, Ian?
No.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. If you do have any questions about this video, please email me, and please check out the other Stuy Splash videos. This is the final week. We have a presentation on CNC routers, which is going to debut in 3 minutes, that I'm actually very excited to watch. So thank you.